The Amazonian tribe members had a unique perspective on intimacy, perceiving it as a source of enjoyment and vitality. Men possessed a strong libido and often engaged in competition to attract desirable women. Rather than using money, fish served as a form of currency for women, so men strove to catch as much as possible. Similar to other civilizations, the Amazonian tribes had a highly eroticized culture where intimacy was considered an essential aspect of life. Among the Amazonian tribes, same-sex relationships, self-indulgence, and incest were stigmatized. Engaging in intercourse with members of other nations was also prohibited. The only permissible partners were cross-relatives. Although villagers could sometimes make exceptions, the mythology and rituals of this people revealed various practices, including relationships with close relatives, same-sex encounters, and even connections with plants and animals considered particularly peculiar. Some rituals involved role reversal where men performed household chores while women took care of children. During women's menstrual cycles, a matriarchal social structure was observed, contrasting with patriarchal systems in other civilizations. Male-female relations in the Amazonian tribes were characterized by significant antagonism and offensive public jokes were common. Men exhibited insecurity and fear toward women, yet they coexisted and collaborated harmoniously in daily activities. Romantic love often aroused suspicion and married. Couples were expected to maintain distance and avoid excessive intimacy. Only newlywed couples within the tribe were allowed greater affection. These couples spent most of their time together, and as their bond grew, they became targets of playful teasing. According to legends, excessive thoughts about a spouse attracted snakes, jaguars, and evil spirits. A solitary young man was generally celibate, especially during specific periods. Towards the end of his isolation, he might succumb to temptation and engage in secret affairs. Upon discovery, his father would usher him into public life, signifying his transition into manhood and readiness for marriage. Delicately navigating the intricate web of relations within the village, he would arrange connections with multiple women. Establishing intimacy with most women could be embarrassing. However, since husbands might become jealous, single girls faced no such challenges, as their fathers would be pleased if someone took an interest in them. Boys often sent gifts, usually fish, as a way to court them. Premarital courtship and relations were viewed casually by the locals, but it posed a problem for men since most women were already married. The Amazonian tribes did not condemn extramarital relations, but pregnancy before marriage was heavily criticized. Unmarried mothers became objects of ridicule, and fatherless children were vulnerable to abuse. Most girls married as soon as they reached their teenage years, and extramarital affairs were commonplace. Both men and women were prone to jealousy, and various myths warned of dire consequences for adulterous couples, such as beatings, dismemberment, or being forever bound during intimacy. While men generally exhibited more openness about their desires, women often leveraged theirs for survival, sometimes exchanging encounters for resources like fish. Unfortunately, as girls grew into womanhood, they faced offensive comments about their reproductive organs. Upon reaching their first period, they might even be accused of contaminating food or desecrating rituals. Preferred locations for encounters included secluded spots by the river or in the bush, often practiced in a sitting position to avoid insect bites. In situations with limited privacy, couples might engage in hammocks despite the discomfort. Animal symbolism also appeared in their myths, particularly encounters between women and snakes, reflecting sexual anxiety and fear of relationships outside the tribe. In the ancient Amazon, children had many fathers and women, many lovers. Journey deep into the lush rainforest, and you'll discover a world unlike any other, a place where freedom and passion intertwine to create a truly liberated culture. Here within the heart of the wilderness, an astonishing phenomenon flourished: multiple paternity, a practice embraced by nearly 70% of the tribes. The notion of having multiple partners was not only accepted, but expected. Open arrangements allowed individuals to freely express their desires and form connections with numerous lovers. Renowned anthropologist Robert Walker revealed that these connections were far from superficial. They held profound significance. Men in their roles as fathers embraced the responsibility of nurturing children born from their partners' unions. Thus, a woman's offspring could have not just one but many fathers, the primary figure and a host of invaluable secondary fathers. What set the ancient Amazonians apart was their fascinating interpretation of genetics. They believed that each of a child's fathers contributed part of their essence. Consequently, it was perfectly acceptable for children to have multiple fathers, and these secondary fathers played an active role in their upbringing. Astonishingly, it was considered ill-mannered for a husband to show jealousy toward his wife's partners, and even stranger if a man did not engage in multiple partnerships. In fact, cousins often became preferred companions, making it particularly impolite to reject their advances. For children, the advantages of having many fathers were plentiful. It meant more gifts, more support, and greater chances of survival. This arrangement served as a pragmatic solution in a society marked by frequent warfare. If tragedy befell the primary father, other males seamlessly stepped in, shouldering the responsibility of fatherhood and easing the burden on the grieving mother. The benefits extended to men as well. Shared paternity forged unbreakable bonds and deep friendships. One of the most effective ways for two men to strengthen an alliance was through sharing wives, often within a close-knit family. Brothers in particular frequently engaged in this practice, further strengthening their connections. Remarkable new research conducted by Robert Walker sheds light on the hidden customs of 128 indigenous groups across the land regions of South America. When scholars carefully studied these groups, they uncovered a fascinating pattern. Out of the 128, at least 53 openly embraced the system of multiple paternity, where children could have many fathers. Only 23 tribes practice single paternity, the model most of the modern world is familiar with, where one father is tied to one child. The remaining 52 tribes were more mysterious. Records about their beliefs in conception and fatherhood were unclear or lost to time, leaving researchers uncertain if they too once followed the tradition of shared fatherhood. But even with this uncertainty, the evidence is overwhelming. At minimum, 40% of these indigenous societies practiced multiple paternity, and in truth, the number might have been much higher, perhaps as many as 70% of all the groups. This means that far from being a rare or unusual custom, the practice of children having many fathers was a widespread and deeply rooted part of Amazonian life. This tradition was not simply about intimacy, it was about survival, unity, and community. Multiple paternity ensured that no child ever stood alone in a dangerous and unpredictable world. If one father died in war or from disease, others were ready to step in, protecting and raising the child as their own. It also strengthened bonds between men, making alliances stronger and friendships deeper because the act of sharing fatherhood tied families together in unbreakable ways. For women, it meant security and stability, knowing that their children would never lack providers. For children, it meant love, care, gifts, protection, and most importantly, a much higher chance of surviving into adulthood. When we look at this custom through modern eyes, it may seem shocking, even strange. But for the Amazonians, it was practical wisdom born from generations of experience. Their world was harsh, marked by hunger, war, and disease. And in such a world, the idea of one father for one child was simply too fragile. By spreading fatherhood across many men, they spread responsibility, security, and loyalty across the entire tribe. So while many ancient civilizations built their societies around strict rules of marriage and inheritance, the Amazonian tribes embraced a freer, more collective system. To them, love and fatherhood were not about jealousy or possession. They were about survival and strength. And that is what made multiple paternity not just a curiosity, but an integral, powerful cornerstone of Amazonian civilization. Thanks for watching.